The beautiful thing about AI is personalization. It's helping with personalization at scale. Agentic AI, which is the next evolution of technology in real time that's happening. Messaging can be really personalized. It can be curated, which means higher engagement, increased sales. The watch out factor, though, is automation and AI being just sent one message fits all across platforms, spray and pray, right? You may get more impressions, but those impressions won't be true impressions that show engagement, that show movement and sales. That's something that really has to be watched out for.
Welcome to the Incremental Marketer, a content series where we meet with top marketing executives and leaders across industries to help you drive growth in your business. Welcome to the Incremental Marketer. Today, we are sitting down with Greg Licciardi, Vice President of the A&A, longtime marketing leader, adjunct professor, and author of The Holy Grail of Marketing. Greg shares his modern framework for reaching the right person with the right message at the right time, and why data, AI, and emotional connection must all work together to drive real results. Greg, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here, Paul. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. And there's so much to talk about with the marketing landscape changing so rapidly right now. And I know you're front and center with Slingwave and all the great work you're doing. So looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise. And yeah, thank you for the book. I remember chatting through this at the ANA in San Diego, where we first met, Masters of Data. And it's a great read. It's very much that kind of vision for the future, where marketers can take advantage of all of the different capabilities that are out there. One of the notes I had as I read it was, you talk about AI both from an enablement standpoint and then also, potential pitfalls. Can just talk about AI in your current lens on it, as you're thinking about how it's working with the marketers that you work with and companies you advise.
Yeah. And the tagline of the book is how to achieve optimal marketing success using AI and beyond. And the beyond is really important because that covers the emotional connection brands have and how important that is to keep intact as AI sets in. And as brands increasingly become dazzled by AI's great attributes and great applications that are coming into marketing. But at the same time, there's a lot of things surrounding those applications that need to be intact. So in the area where I cover AI, I actually met Vera Sue at Microsoft about a year and a half ago. She's a rock star. She's been on several podcasts. She's constantly quoted. She's high up in data and AI at Microsoft. And she writes about, in my conversation with her, we talked about how with AI quickly coming on the scene, that companies need to really upskill their employees and really look at how to integrate AI while including still that human element to marketing, right? The curation, really looking at how your messaging can accelerate using AI, but keep that brand ethos, keep that messaging that's consistent to your brand purpose. As I shared, I've been teaching 10 years and the students, you mention AI and they're almost like deer in headlights because they're excited about it, but they're also like in fear of what's it going to become by the time they graduate and what the field is going to look like, right? So it is a superpower. It is a superpower that will help everyone as we go in our roles and grow, and it shouldn't be feared, but it should be embraced. I tell the students, you need to embrace it. There's a lot of certificate programs beyond college and grad school that you can take in AI, and there are a lot of things you can do. And I mean, even in my classroom, I say, look, I encourage you to use AI when you're doing your homework and doing your papers. I don't want you to plagiarize and just do an output and hand it in, for your assignment. but use AI to help you stimulate ideas and help you come out with the best research and background that you need to make your statements. That's a positive thing. And I've been seeing it. The papers have been elevated through using AI. I've also seen papers that have been, there's been plagiarism involved. So, you just have to be careful. This area of marketing is growing so quickly that there needs to be guardrails, and there needs to be learnings and educating and upskilling as it moves so quickly.
Well, and I think about that from our standpoint in terms of brand measurement, brand love, that connection that you mentioned. There's some functions that where it's so clear, cut and dried, like competitive research. Take a creative and give me the attributes of the creative that are, very black and white, right? It's what color, what format, what font. But then there's things like brand love, emotional bond. How do you think AI plays there, and where have you seen it be successful or not successful?
The beautiful thing about AI is personalization. Okay. So it's helping with personalization at scale. So I used to work for a company that was a UX firm. It's called Content Square. And they would optimize user engagement on websites and look at how people are hovering over content and so forth. But one of the clients that we worked with, Goop, which was Gwyneth Paltrow's site, they went to these dynamic pages design on their website, which meant if you're a woman and you went on Goop and bought fuchsia lipstick, the next time you came to the Goop site, there was fuchsia lipstick and fuchsia nail polish and fuchsia hats on the homepage that you saw, right? So it was like curated to your previous purchasing behavior, what you clicked on the last time you went to the site. Agentic AI, which is the term right now, is exactly that. That's the next evolution of technology in real time that's happening through what agents, agentic AI. And that's a very positive thing because messaging can be really personalized. It can be curated, and the user experience will be elevated exponentially, which means higher engagement, increased sales that will happen from those types of technologies. And so I think that's all very, very positive. The watch out factor, though, is automation and AI being just sent one message fits all across platforms, spray and pray, right? That will just diminish your effectiveness. You may get more impressions, but those impressions won't be true impressions that show engagement, that show movement and sales. So that's something that really has to be watched out for. In the framework of the Holy Grail of marketing, it is a holistic approach. That you can't just have the right message and not show up at the right time or in the right environments to be successful. So it's something that when things move so fast with AI, sometimes you lose focus on all the different components that need to be intact. So it's important that you keep that holistic look and make sure that you're hitting on all cylinders. I started writing the book about 2 years ago. As you know, I've been teaching marketing at Fordham and Seton Hall, as you mentioned, for about 10 years now. And coming out of the pandemic, I worked from home and I got hooked on fast food. I got hooked on Wendy's, and I became, it was crazy. So I would order Wendy's before I got on a Zoom call, and then I'd go pick it up. And I noticed on Friday mornings at 11 a.m., I started getting Wendy's ads in my social feed. And I said to myself, this is the holy grail of marketing. And I said, oh man, this is something I got to really put into writing. So I started researching companies that were doing it really well. And I also realized that as AI and these new marketing technologies were quickly coming on the scene, that marketers really needed a North Star to really help them navigate best practices to be successful. And then the third thing I noticed was brands with AI, it's so easy to execute, right? We're hearing about it constantly, new
Yeah.
new applications of AI and new platforms. And but with that, the challenge is a lot of brands are losing that emotional connection they have with their consumers, and it's really important to keep that intact. So I really cover those three areas, and I was able to get an all-star team of contributors to help me chronicle um, the topic and really make it informative.
You do have a who's who of contributors and reviewers in the forward, and it's great. And also the Wendy's example, it's a great one. I mean, obviously, Wendy's is a great company, good burger, and you have a particular passion for it if you're seeking it on a more daily basis. So tell us how Wendy's was the right figured out you as the right person, and then that right message, right environment, right time, right outcome.
Yeah. So retargeting, everyone knows about retargeting that's happening, right? So you go onto a site, there's a cookie that gets attached to you, it follows you. So I think some of that happened because I was just going on the website ordering, and I wasn't just ordering from Wendy's, I was using Grubhub and other types of food ordering apps. And over time, it recognizes you, and they just knew whatever their automated or their ad campaign DSP system was using also timed it impeccably because I was getting these ads sent right before lunch, right? And that's important to mention because the holy grail of marketing platform is holistic. It's every component has to be hit on or you risk losing all your momentum, right? So Wendy's, they had great ads, great messaging that was coming to me. They were sending me offers to go in that day. They were hitting me at the right time in the right environments where I was engaged in my social feed, and they hit the right person, right? Because they
Yeah.
knew I was going in there previously. I had a propensity to go to Wendy's. Now they wanted me to go to Wendy's more, and they wanted me to stay away from Burger King and McDonald's. So the outcome was achieved, right? Because I
Right.
started going in there more and I wasn't going to the competition. So that's a simple example, and there's others in the book, but I think today it's about optimization. Like, how can you use all the tools you have, all the technologies, what you offer at Slingwave, to enable brands to really show ROI across all platforms and make sure they're optimizing that. Those types of technologies, those types of services can increase sales and market share and make you successful at the end of the next quarter, the next year. And that's really needed. In my book, I mention Wanamaker, the father of advertising. His famous quote was, "I know half of my advertising is working. I just don't know which half." Right.
Right.
And today, that can't happen, right? CMOs today, I think the average tenure is 3.5 years, and it's getting shorter because now marketing is really part of the profit center. It's used to be a fluff industry, right? Creative, beautiful, creative. People like it or hate it. There's buzz, but now marketing is performance based. It really drives a revenue, and there's accountability, and that has caused some of the roles to really be looked at under a microscope. But the positive thing is a lot of marketers now are being compensated similar to the sales teams. So where they're now getting bonus structures, they're now taking part in the wins and the achievements that the company achieves during the year. So that's the positive side. And also the positive side is, look, if the campaign's not working, at least now you have backup to show why it's not working or what happened. So,
I love the
those are,
Wanamaker quote. Yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah,
we
yeah.
joke around. Our tagline is "We know which half is working," right?
There you
Because
go.
as a media mix model, and it's a bold claim, but yeah, there's truly waste in the mix of any company. Your experience on that front. So now you're at the ANA. You're engaging
Yeah.
with 50,000 marketing professionals, and what themes and pain points are you seeing as you talk to these brands? How does it resonate with your book, and with this framework.
Yeah, it's so great to be at the ANA. I've been here now almost 6 months, but I've been around the ANA for years, the Association of National Advertisers. I met Bill Duggan a few years ago, and he actually contributed to the book. Bill is one of the senior leaders at ANA. And ANA has done studies on the advertising ecosystem, specifically programmatic. They had an amazing study that came out on the programmatic ecosystem and how it needed to be improved. And the stats that they shared were alarming,
Yeah.
as far as, percentage of campaigns that aren't viewed by humans, they're viewed by bots. And, when a campaign goes out programmatically, let's say it's a $30 million campaign, it goes across thousands and thousands of sites in seconds, right? And when that happens, it's shown that some of those sites aren't necessarily appropriate or really conducive to the brand message being delivered.
Right.
So the environment, and that's why the right environment is so important, that your ad shows up in, has to really be conducive to your marketing message. It has to, be complementary to your brand ethos, because if it's not, it actually can cause more harm than good, right, to your campaign. And so those types of studies are so important today as automation takes off and increases. And now with AI, it's just exponentially growing, right? And we're hoping AI will also contribute to bettering the ecosystem. But we know there's hallucinations. We know there's things happening in AI that aren't perfect as well, that we're now looking at the ANA as well.
We had a booth at the Chicago conference in September this year, and we were standing right next to the waterfall chart of your ANA
Yes.
colleagues who have worked on how much gets taken at each step in a programmatic buy.
Yes.
And it's a real finer point in terms of how you need to, especially around programmatic, have those guardrails and instrumentation to make sure that you have that strategy right. I mean, obviously, it has its strong benefits if done right, but it's a detriment and a huge drag if you set it and forget it, or you don't have the expertise around it, and you don't have the team around it to help you get through that clutter.
Yeah, and I'm sure at Slingwave you guys address that and really are taking closer attention to, and that's right on. It's really eye opening, and
Right.
I think companies now are taking more focus on this to make sure that the ecosystem is improved and that their agencies and their buying platforms are more accountable to make sure that the campaigns are shown on the right platforms and right environments, and they're viewed by humans. But that's going to take a while to work through. Nothing's ever 100% perfect. But what we do at the ANA is really focus on how we can help the industry improve to deliver the best outcomes for marketers. And, some of those studies show the negative side. Some of our studies show the very positive side of what's happening. We're now looking at the creator space. We're having our first creator in-person conference in February. Influencer marketing is just increasingly growing. So we're going to really take leadership on how the industry can improve that ecosystem as it grows at rapid speed. So there's a lot of really positive things happening. And I say positive also in the light of how can we improve and the improvement that is happening. So,
well, and you can't have the holy grail of marketing without the capabilities that are in programmatic. It is actually that foundational layer that shows how you actually get right message, right person, right place, right time. In your book, you mentioned Harry's, you mentioned e.l.f. It was great to hear one or two of those examples, because those really do showcase where this positive comes through in terms of the capability and the opportunity.
Absolutely. And the tagline of my book is how to optimize your marketing success using AI and beyond. And as you said, Paul, the programmatic automation the ability to reach the right person at the right time with the right message. There's some amazing applications out there using AI, using programmatic automation that enable brands to do that. But there also, has to be oversight. And I thank you for mentioning the e.l.f. campaign. So when I was researching brands doing the holy grail of marketing really well, I came across a company called the Weather Company. The Weather Company at the time was owned by IBM, and they recently spun off. And I contacted someone there. They put me in touch with Randy Stipes, who's the CMO. And I asked Randy, I said, look, I'm writing this book. I took her through the framework, and she was so excited to engage in that conversation and to contribute to my book. And we had a call with their head of corporate communications, and they came back with a case study around e.l.f. skincare. And e.l.f. is today one of the fastest growing beauty brands out there. It's had 30% year over year growth for the past 4 years. Patrick O'Keefe spoke at our digital and social media event recently. He's their CMO. Incredible. The guy's a rock star. He's just doing incredible things. So what e.l.f. did with the Weather Company is amazing, because today, as cookies are diminishing, as privacy concerns are coming in, weather gives you that marketing trigger or lever to use that is privacy safe. It's a something that we all are mindful of, the weather, when we make purchasing decisions. 50% of women, when they do their normal makeup routine, weather is the number one factor. So when they saw that statistic, they connected with the Weather Company. And what the Weather Company did for them was it provided them with a campaign for their skin toners that tied in different types of weather. And the campaign had incredible results. They put it in their creative, and they had the glow alert based on weather. And it was just a huge success. So I showcase that in the book. It's one of the great examples of the holy grail of marketing in place, using the latest technologies and applications to really go above and beyond, increase sales and market share and be competitive. And that's why e.l.f. has had such great success. Patrick talks about the approval process there. When they see an opportunity, it gets approved in under a month, and they go and execute very rapidly. So they get to market very quickly with these new technologies and applications, which is showing great results.
It's procurement doesn't get in the way of marketing in that instance. It's essentially a partner to marketing.
Yeah, I think it's a lesson learned to everyone, whether you're a small company or a large company. When opportunities arise, especially with marketing moving at breakneck speed, you sometimes have to, move at a faster pace than normal to gain the positive results.
You've been teaching MBA students for 10 years. Tell us about that new AI conversation that you've introduced in the last 2 years, 3 years, and especially this year. How's it affected students' critical thinking, positively or negatively? And what are the conversations you're having with them?
That's a great question. So what I share with my students with AI and with marketing moving so quickly right now with all the new marketing technologies is to really know the audience you're speaking to. That's why the right person is the first and the foundation to the platform, is really understand your audience inside and out so that you can speak to them authentically with empathy, right? Authenticity is going to become increasingly important, because as messages sometimes become more generic with AI, the ability to have a message that's really true to the brand, true to what you're selling, and relates back to the interests and desires of your audience is paramount. So that's really what I share. And, the importance of brand purpose. And I have a whole chapter on that in
Mm.
Holy Grail of Marketing. Brand purpose will continue to be so important because it is a distinguishing attribute. Gen Z today, that's what they care about. How are brands going to help, contribute to the greater good? So it's so critical.
That Tom's example in the book is great, and I felt it being right next to a Tom's store on Venice Abbot Kinney with my first startup and Zephyr.
Oh yeah.
They had it right. I mean, and they have it right. But they grew up in the age pre AI, right? So is that doable now? Are brands on a similar journey, or are they taking a different approach?
Yeah, no, that's going to continue to be even more important, I feel. And the Toms is a great case study. They're one of the pioneers of really. I have Burt's Bee in the book and what they're doing so well. So it's just going to continue to be really important. And the case studies are great because they show results. They show success. Tom's is still around. It's a beautiful brand. Burt's Bee is growing astronomically. In different product lines in different areas because they've developed a movement around their brands. It's a movement, and that ties into the brand purpose.
Yeah, you have a few examples in your book of case studies that didn't go well. The outcome wasn't what the brand expected, and some of them have turned it around. What's one or two that you can highlight for the audience?
The one that I mentioned in the book is Nike's 2024 Summer Olympics campaign, that winning isn't for everyone. And I don't know if you remember it, but it had like statements that were like, I show no empathy. I act only on winning. It was all about like winning at any cost, right? It was kind of really existential. And I don't think it wasn't a great message for young athletes. And so I really looked at that, like knowing your audience and who you're during one of the biggest events, the Olympics, to come out with a campaign when Nike has always been about inclusivity and really being a professional, being an athlete that is at the highest level. So I mentioned that one, but then just 2 weeks ago, they came out with a campaign that was why do it, right? It plays into the just do it, but the meaning behind why you're doing something, why you want to achieve success, knowing that, I mean, that could be interchanged. I'm actually going to write about this in this week's Substack on my newsletter, that why do it can almost be interchanged with what motivates you, what drives you. And it plays into just do it, but just do it can almost sound like flip. Like just do it. So they've really turned it around. And, in the bad outcomes is also, programmatic and just taking the easy way out and not really knowing where your ads are appearing, like really knowing you're in the right environments is so critical.
Thank you, Greg. It was so good to have you on the show. How can people get your book and how can people get in touch with you?
Thank you so much. The Holy Grail of Marketing is on Amazon, but it's also at holygrailofmarketing.com. And on that website, there's interviews, there's all kinds of information, inspirational content surrounding the book. And so it's a great website. But I'm on almost all platforms. I have an audiobook coming out and a digital book over the next few months.
That's great. Well, tell us what your next big one will be. What's the theme that you're looking at next as you look toward the future?
Actually, thank you for asking. I was an executive coach before getting over to the A&A in a previous role. And so I was doing group coaching sessions, and I have a professor at Seton Hall. He read my book and he applied the Holy Grail of Marketing framework to finding a job. So reaching the right person at the right time in the right environments and the right types of jobs. And he applied the framework to it. And I thought that was amazing. So my next book that I'm thinking about is Holy Grail of Marketing the individual.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking about in the future. But there'll be updates of Holy Grail of Marketing, of course, because, in another year or so, I'll have to update that just because marketing will be much different in a year. and there'll be more applications around the framework.
You could have the dedicated AI edition.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Greg, thank you so much for
Thank you,
joining us
Paul.
today.
Thank you so much, and keep doing all the great work at Slingwave.
And for all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on today's episode of The Incremental Marketer. Stay tuned for more voices, more lessons, and more proof that incremental moves can drive big growth. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and join us for more episodes with the leaders shaping the future of marketing.